Hello, welcome to my impromptu Microsoft Flight Simulator video with the Coronado Pilatus PC-12 gas turbine 4-bladed composite turboprop aircraft with approximately 1,700 plus horsepower on demand. We're here today at Kilo Tango Tango November, also known as Trenton Mercer Airport, and we're just going to be doing, like I said, an impromptu flight over to Kilo Victor Alpha Yankee. That's South Jersey Regional, not very far in an aircraft with this kind of performance. But, needless to say, this is going to be a single edit, no cuts, nothing. We're just going to get right to it. So this is a rather excellent aircraft. First thing I'm going to do, of course, is turn our fuel control valve on. And I have these labeled here so that viewership can see what's going on, and I'm not just flipping buttons without any explanation here. So this plane also has the extremely advanced Garmin GTN750. This is a very expensive piece of avionics in the real world. So I had to pick that up at extra cost to myself out of my wallet. And it also has, well, I'll show you in a minute, it's got METAR's meteorological updates for weather. The weather's pulled from NOAA in the real world. So you've got that, and we've also got NAVIGRAPH for approach charts. So there's not going to be really too much complicated stuff going on from Mercer to Kilo Victor Alpha Yankee. So not going to really use too much of that, but you can go in there and see it at least a little bit. So to turn on the Pilatus, of course, you got to turn on your batteries 1 and 2, plus your standby bus bar there. And now that we've got power going, you can see we're reading it. Before we start, we've got to do a couple checks here. Let's turn off the master caution light there, and then let's go ahead and turn on our avionics 1 and 2, and then let all the systems align and come to life. First thing I'll do is I'll just focus in on here so that we can change a couple things right off of the bat. Check the messages, no departure, no arrival, so we'll change that. We're just going to fly direct. We'll set the origin to Kilo Tango Tango November. This is one of the main features, Trenton Mercer, of the GTN750 touchscreen display. Very nice. And Kilo Victor Alpha Yankee. Searching and South Jersey Regional. So there you go. One of the nice things about the GTN750 is you can go in here and you can look at procedures, and you can just, as simple as that, press buttons on the screen, do what you need to do. Departures here if you were given any by the air traffic controllers. We're not going to use any today, but what's neat is there is approach plates for an RNAV approach or a VOR approach, so we'll just say runway 26 for argument's sake. These are pulled directly from NAVIGRAPH.com. So you can see what it says, Mount Holly, New Jersey, RNAV approach, GPS, runway 27. You're going to be looking at this. This is a how you fly in, and then what happens if you do a missed approach, and how you fly out the missed approach and then hit the holding pattern. There's also the considerations of this here. This is sort of like a vertical chart here. These are all Hattup, Kebab, Wanak, and then runway 26. They are designators for what altitude you should be at. 2,000 by Hattup, 1,500 by Kebab, and then 600 by Wanak. And if you are flying the RNAV approach on your RNAV-equipped avionics suite in your aircraft, it will fly in regardless of weather conditions automatically, almost like an ILS approach in itself, how they use in the big airplanes that everybody's used to. So now that we have our flight plan geared up, we have our displays all synced up, and the gyroscopes are all running in the aircraft. The plane knows where it is and what we want to do. We are going to check some weather here before we start up, because we got to set our barometric pressure in our altimeter. So let's go ahead and contact the ATIS here at Trenton Mercer. Again, this is using NOAA, National Oceanographic Weather System. So there you see it on the bottom left. Altimeter 32.9. So we're going to change that to sync our aircraft altimeter with the current barometric pressure, and then we're going to go back to ground so we don't have to listen to that. With that set up, next thing we should do is probably turn on our thing here. Let's get that off of there, our little radar, and then we're going to come up here and we're going to do our little lamp test. Make sure all of our lights work in the event of any issues. So the other thing you would do is you would do a fire test to make sure that your fire system works in the event of a fire on startup or any other time through the flight. Always a good thing. And what I want to do is just come down here. I'll reset the generator 1. And then we're pretty much ready for a start. So the way turboprops work, since they're gas turbine engines, is we're not going to introduce fuel until we reach a specific RPM here. So it's about 14% on the Pilatus PC-12, give or take. This is our fuel cutoff lever. We've already activated the fuel valve so that we got fuel going from our engines, from our wings, into the engines. Let's go ahead and move the yoke real quick there. And then to let people know, since we have a swinging propeller, we're going to put on the recog lights, we're going to put on the nav lights, and I'm just going to put on the beacons. That way, if there was anybody out here, they would know we're about to start up the engine, and there's going to be some moving parts that could be very, very hazardous to people walking by. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and fire this bird up. We'll start because the fuel pumps are all on auto. So we're going to go ahead, and you can hear the igniters ticking. And the NG is above 14%, so what I want to do is introduce some fuel to the engine. It should light right off. Ground idle. Now we're going to watch the ITT in top center. That's the interstage turbine temperature. You want to make sure it's not a hot start. You don't want any fires, because obviously a Pratt & Whitney PT6 turboprop engine is extremely expensive. And it's looking like our ITT has stabilized and is coming down. So around 700, well within the green. Propeller RPM is rising. That's center left. We have about 50% fuel, so we have plenty there. Okay, so that's running. What we're going to do now is turn off the recog and the beacon for now. I'm going to go ahead and flip our generators on so that we are actually making electricity and not running off of the batteries. There's not any icing conditions, so I'm just going to switch these down to light in the event that we did have any issues with that. And now that we're running there, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the taxi lights. We'll come down here, and then we're also going to get in the habit, obviously, of turning on our altimeter and make sure it's on 1200, which is generic here in the Northeast where we are, and it is on altimeter reporting mode. So air traffic controllers know who we are, where we are, how fast we're going, and how high we are, so on and so forth. We'll turn that back on. Now let's go over to our map here, and you can see that we have our magenta line. That's going to take us direct path straight to Kilo Victor Alpha Yankee. But one thing we need to pay attention to is all these airspaces. KWRI, that's McGuire Air Force Base. Absolutely, in the real world, you would not want to fly anywhere inside these yellow lines here. That would be major problems. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and switch over to our course direction indicator. We're on the localizer, which is the ILS. We're going to change that to GPS, so when I do go into nav mode, we'll basically be following the magenta line and not looking for an ILS signal. We're not going to go very high today, so the next thing I'm going to do is up my altitude, say 5,000 feet, because we're only traveling 20.3 miles. So I'm going to turn that into glide slope, or excuse me, vertical speed mode. We'll go up 1,000 feet a minute. This is all for autopilot, just in case we decide to use it. Flight director is on. I'm going to turn on heading mode, just for argument's sake now, in case we use that, and then we're going to find out where we are taxiing out to take off. We're going to depart straight out.
Trenton Ground
So we're calling air traffic control.
486 would take a request taxi to the active straight.
Of course, we have Tango. That's the current weather. That lets them know you have the most recent weather update information. 34. 120.7 when ready. 1207. Enter. We'll leave that in the standby. When we get to the hold short line, we'll switch over and we'll ask for clearance for takeoff, and it said 3-4. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, and we're going to use this HSI, and we are going to swap to 3-4. That's 340 degrees on the magnetic compass. So you can kind of see now, if I were to switch on heading mode, it would just follow the 34 there, which would be the heading we're going as we're taking off. So one of the other things, like I said earlier, was it's super nice that you can scroll around, essentially, in real life with your fingers on the GTN750, so that we can come around here and we can see where 3-4 is, basically. (16:24). There's 3-4 right there. So we're just going to cross right on over here and go right there. Excellent reference source for staying ahead of the aircraft and air traffic control. That way you don't fall behind and get lost on the airfield. Just our seating position here. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn on some panel lights here so that we can see what we're doing. It's not going to get dark, so I won't put anything else on. But we got that. I'll put the beacon on, leave the taxis the way they are. We are ready to go. First thing we need to do is check our brakes. So I'll remove the parking brake. And let's go ahead and move forward a little bit. And then just hit the brakes. And they do actually function, so that's cool. The next thing we'll do is we'll check our beta. Clear right, clear left. Beta is reverse propeller, one of the unique features of a turboprop aircraft. So let's go ahead and swap over beta. And there you go. Propeller is throwing air forward, slowing us down like a giant speed brake. Okay, clear right. Clear left, and we're crossing an active runway. Always good to look before crossing the street, both ways. So hopefully this isn't too boring, fairly technical I suppose, but this is quite a remarkable aircraft in the sim as well as in the real world. We'll make that left-hand turn for the edge of 3-4. Always want to use maximum runway length whenever possible, in case there's any emergencies, power loss, fires, so on and so forth. Want to make sure you give yourself enough length to stop, of course. Situate our GTN750 so that we can see what's going on. And here's the hold short line of 3-4. Alright, let's brighten things up. So I'll go from taxi to landing lights. Fuel pumps are in auto mode. They are currently running. AOA de-ice. We're going to make sure that all of our gauges and everything are on. Yep, and we're going to turn our pitot heat on. Clear that message in yellow about the angle of attack indicator, because you do not want your pitot heat to not be on. You just leave it off while you're on the ground because you do not want the probes to overheat. So let's go ahead and throw in a notch of flaps. We'll go ahead and call air traffic control. Once we switch from standby to active, 120.7, call up tower, and request takeoff clearance. Visual flight rules.
November tree 486 ready for straight out departure at runway tree 4.
Tornado November 3486 altimeter 30.290 wind 292 at 8. Departing straight out approved.
Approved.
Clear for takeoff runway tree 4.
And we will acknowledge
Clear
that.
for takeoff runway tree 4, Tornado 486.
Okay. So we'll bring our fuel condition leveler up to flight idle. And that'll give us maximum power. You'll hear the engine come up by itself. And now we have 1,700 horsepower available to us. Only going to go to about 95% maximum power today. We'll bring the engine up slowly so we don't overspeed it or the propeller. Okay, and we're off to the races. Now, this engine has so much horsepower, there's a lot of torque, so you have to throw in a lot of right rudder because it wants to rotate the plane around its axis and throw us off the side of the runway. And just like that, we're off. Gear up, positive rate of climb, 1,500 feet a minute. Flap still 15. I'm going to trim out. And we're out of the white arc. Flaps coming up. Air traffic control should let us know that we are leaving their airspace shortly. So I'm going to pull the power back. And that right there is the Delaware River. We're going to be flying to the left, right over it. And our flaps are up now. Still climbing at 500 feet a minute. So let's go ahead and keep on making that left-hand bank. And with that, we'll level out for a second. Let's throw on the yaw damper. Reduce the oscillations. Throw on the autopilot. We'll go into navigation mode, let the plane take over. We're going to 5,000 feet, vertical speed, and armed. And we're climbing currently at about 1,000 feet a minute, a little less than. And we're on the autopilot system. So now that the plane's got control, let's go ahead and bring the RPM of the propeller down a little bit, maybe about 1650. And there's our traffic control call out. Acknowledge that.
Trenton Tower,
Thank you
Tornado,
very much.
November tree 486 frequency change.
Okay, now that we're flying on autopilot, we also have time to clean up our lights here. Let's remove the landing lights. Throw on our strobes just for some extra visibility. And we are flying like the birds. So yep, that's Trenton Mercer down there. Kilo Tango Tango November. We are currently traveling obviously towards the Philadelphia direction. Actually, it's right out there over the, let's see, right over there. Probably about the, about due straight ahead, I suppose. 3,500 feet and climbing. Still 1,000 feet a minute. And what we're doing here on our HSI, so obviously this is our aircraft in magenta, or rather orange, and that short break line, that is the path we're trying to get to, so we're flying towards it. Once it centers up, the plane will track the magenta and pretty much follow the path. We have message on display that we are inside the airspace. We already know that. So we'll go back and you'll see that magenta come up, and as soon as we're within turning range, you'll see there he goes, automatic. We're picking up our track straight to South Jersey Regional. And everything's a-okay. So let's go ahead and bring up the ATC menu again, and we'll look for our nearest airport, because I'm looking for where we need to go. Kilo, Victor, Alpha, Yankee, South Jersey Regional. Let's find out a little bit about what they're dealing with today in the weather.
Automated weather observation 1500 Zulu. Wind 304 at 8. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature 0.
Alright, so see there is a difference in altimeter barometric setting between Trenton Mercer and South Jersey. So we're going to go to 33 or 30.32, and then we're going to tune 122.8 Unicom, and we're going to select the runway for landing. 26, landing in the correct direction. Let's announce our position. Okay, and then the next nice thing about this is that, again, with the GTN, you can literally come in here and scroll in to South Jersey while you're flying and look at what you're dealing with in terms of taxiways, so on and so forth. So we know that we're landing at 26, 260 degrees, so I'm going to go ahead and switch my HSI to 260 degrees indicated. And now we have runway heading track. But we're going to fly over anyways, just to get a visual, make sure the runway is clear regardless. So we are flying a little bit in the clouds, and obviously this is NOAA real world weather. You can see a little bit of icing on that window, so we're going to go ahead and turn on our boots. We'll throw in a little bit of the prop, and then we're going to go ahead and just let them run. Windshields, left and right. There we go, look at that, it's already melted. Okay, so now I want to listen to that all day. So, yeah, we're at 5,000 feet, well, technically 4,990 currently. Cruising, we've got autopilot on, we've got no caution or warning messages. Everything's a-okay. We're under 250 knots, which is a requirement in the United States. Of course, that's just stated for entertainment purposes, like this entire video, for entertainment. But you are supposed to be under 250 knots in the United States, below 10,000 feet. So we're getting pretty close, 4.2 miles. Now would be a good time to manually fly. So I'll just set my craft up for that. We're going to zoom on in. And then I'll remove nav mode. I'll turn off the autopilot, and we'll go ahead and remove the yaw damper and everything else attached to the autopilot system. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the power back. I'll bring my prop speed back up, just in case we miss the landing. That way I'll have as much power as I possibly can. Now I'm turning to the right because, like I said, there's that McGuire airspace to our left. We do not want to fly into that military airspace. So you might see in the GTN now, pretty much South Jersey is right off to our left. And there it is. So we're going to be coming in on the opposite end there of where we're flying now. So I will go ahead and make a left pattern for 26. And this is actually quite a quick aircraft for South Jersey Regional, so we're going to be coming in smoking quick. Dropping a bunch of altitude real quick. And hanging a very tight left turn because, like I said, airspace. Key to making a successful, smooth landing is trimming out the aircraft. You don't want to be fighting the controls when you're on final approach. So there we are. Pretty much barged our way into traffic there. We're going to say we're on our downwind leg there. Of course, that's the left downwind. And we're super wide. Hey, look at that out the front window. There's Flying W down there. And we're going to have to turn rapidly quick because there's that yellow wire line. Let's announce the base. And just getting beeping landing gear because it does not like that I am at idle without the gear being down.
November 12, automated weather observation 1500 Zulu. Wind 294 at 8. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature 0C, 2.10 C. Altimeter tree 029.
So we're working on that.
November 12, automated
And getting back.
1500 Zulu.
Let's go ahead and
294 at 8. Visibility 10.
change over here
Clear.
to approach.
0C, 2.1.
And we'll go back. And you get an extra look there at Flying W down there. Very cool. So we're below required speed for landing gear. Let's go ahead and pull that out. And we're going to go ahead and introduce a whole bunch of flaps. First notch to slow us down in the white arc on the speed indicator, so we're going to go full. And just like that, we're pretty much doing a downward spiral so that we can bleed off this airspeed. But that is South Jersey below us. So, cutting halfway across the airport midway, we'll make another downwind, all while continuing to lose altitude and keeping track of our speed. We'll make another base and then we'll make a final. Have any weight on board today, so we can fly at a fairly low landing speed. Makes it nice and controllable for the small South Jersey regional runway there in terms of how wide it is. Flying currently at about 90 knots. And definitely some gusts over these trees. That is not me manipulating the inputs. If you look straight ahead of us, you can't see it, but that's the Route 38 landfill out there right off of the nose. Route 38, if you're familiar with that. Okay. Some chopping power because we know we have plenty of altitude. We'll definitely make the runway, and I'm going to keep the speeds manageable here. So obviously in the real world we would be calling out which portion of the pattern we were in. Of course that would have been downwind to base. Now we're base to final. Just letting any other pilots know that we are on imminent landing approach. And there's South Jersey. and small inputs on landing. Little bit of rudder. So hopefully everybody enjoyed that. If you were watching it to the end, I appreciate it. And we got the runway made again. So power to idle. And we're down. No need for reverse thrust. Plenty of runway to stop on. Let's pull our engine back to ground idle mode. Okay, we'll clear the runway here, and we'll clean up the aircraft. Let's go ahead and throw on our taxi lights. Let's pull up our flaps all the way. And then we will taxi to the parking. Right over there. Go on the far end. And the reason for that is with these turboprop engines, you want to blow idle air through the engine as to cool off the turbine blades. That way there isn't any problems with expansion and contraction of the engine. Because, like I said, the cost of these engines, maintenance and longevity, that is the key. Not spending $500,000 every other hour. So we'll go ahead and we'll go to this last one here. And we'll take this first spot. Right on our left, I say. Okay, so we're at idle. Let's go ahead and throw the parking brakes on. We'll remove the yoke just for ease of access again. Let's go ahead and turn off our instrument lights. We've been letting that idle for quite long enough. We'll throw off the beacons, the strobes, the navs, the taxis. Let's go ahead and turn off our anti-ice here. And our pitot heat. We'll go ahead and turn off our altimeter reporting mode on our transponder. We'll go to standby, and then let's remove the fuel from the engine. Press the reset caution off, and just making sure the engine's spool down appropriately. Pull the feathering of the prop back so that does not windmill all day. And then let's go ahead and remove the avionics 1 and 2. We'll remove the generators. We'll turn off batteries 2 and 1 and standby bus bar. Okay. So there you have it, a flight from Trenton Mercer in the Coronado Pilatus PC-12. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Hopefully you enjoyed that.